Good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, and I am in Athens, Greece, and I thought I would do an update. And what I want to talk about this morning is more details with regards to the negotiations in Turkey and the information that we now have that is in our hands, and paints a much clearer picture as to what was going on in Turkey and what went down in Turkey. I said in my video yesterday, when we first got the information about some of the proposals that were put on the table during the negotiations between Russia and Ukraine and Turkey, that there's going to be a second day of negotiations that's been canceled. The Russian delegation and the Turkish negotiators, I think they just pretty much said there's no need for another day of negotiations, because what really happened in Turkey was that the Ukrainian delegation, for the first time, they've put on the table a real proposal. Now, some people may think it's a good proposal. Some people may think it's a bad proposal. Some people may say it doesn't go far enough. Some people say it doesn't ask for much. Doesn't matter. I think the important part with what we've seen as a first step, and we have a long way to go. That's my opinion. I think there's actually going to be a long way to go before we get some sort of peace, if we get some sort of peace agreement. This is a first step. It is a first step. For the first time in 8+ years. In 8+ years, you actually have the Ukraine side actually putting down serious, real proposals. It doesn't mean that they're good or bad. That's not what I'm saying. It just means that you actually have a professional document that you can work with, or at least that you can take to the higher ups, and that's exactly what the chief negotiator, Medinsky, is going to do. He's going to take the proposal that was presented by the Ukraine side, and he's going to take it to the Kremlin and to Putin and the Security Council, and they're going to look it over, and they're going to come back with their thoughts, counter proposal, their opinion. We'll see what they come back with. But the Russian delegation now has something in their hands. It took 8+ years. And this military operation and major defeats in Ukraine, major defeats of the Ukraine military, and the potential annihilation, the ongoing annihilation of the Azov battalion in Mariupol, as well as in this cauldron in the Donbass, in order to get this proposal on the table. And this all could have been avoided. All of this could have been avoided if we just had this type of negotiation, this type of professional, serious negotiation taking place a year ago, 6 months ago. Instead of having these constructive talks taking place, we had the European Union and the U.S. egging Zelensky on to talk about NATO membership, and we had Zelensky running around in Berlin at the Munich Security Council with Kamala Harris talking up how Ukraine is going to get nuclear weapons. This is the real tragedy of it all. So look, the big news was the announcement by the Russian side that they're going to provide 2 types of concessions to Ukraine, because they actually came up with a proposal. And in good faith, what the Russian side did is they said, look, in good faith, what we'll do is we'll meet you halfway on 2 issues. And the first issue is that if we get to some sort of negotiated settlement, or as we work towards a negotiated settlement, what we'll do is we'll actually have the 2 leaders at the signing of the negotiated settlement, along with, say, the foreign ministers and things like this. Usually you'll have the foreign ministers and the diplomats iron out the details of the settlement and then sign it, and then you're going to have a separate event at a different location where you're going to have Putin and Zelensky, and then they're going to sign the agreement. And okay, it could draw it out a little bit more. But what the Russians said is they said, look, what we'll do is we'll actually have the signing of some sort of settlement if we get there. We'll actually have it take place, everyone there. We'll have the foreign ministers there, we'll have the diplomats there as they iron out the details of the agreement and they sign it. Then we'll just have the leaders, Zelensky and Putin, also at the same event, and they'll sign it as well. So it kind of shortens the timeline of getting a signature on some sort of agreement. And the Russians said, we'll do that. We'll accommodate Ukraine with that concession. And the other thing that the Russians did, which is being talked about a lot, and you get different views on this announcement, this concession that the Russians say they're providing Ukraine in order to keep the spirit of good faith, is that the Russians said that they would drastically reduce the operations, the forward operations in Kiev and Chernigov. It doesn't mean that the Russians are pulling out. It doesn't mean that there's a ceasefire. Medinsky, the Russian negotiator, was very specific. He said this does not mean there's a ceasefire. Military operations will continue, especially in the east and in the south, the southeast to the southwest. But what they will do is they're going to kind of put a pause in the activity in Kiev and Chernigov, and they're going to drastically reduce. Those were the words that they used. Drastically reduce the forward operations, the military operations in those areas. Doesn't mean they're leaving. Doesn't mean they're retreating. They're going to continue to surround those cities. They're going to continue to keep the Ukraine military pinned down and occupied, while they redeploy some assets to the east in order to finish off the Azov guys in the Donbass, the 60,000 Azov guys and Ukraine military that's in the Donbass. So a lot of people are studying that move, and I just want to read you two viewpoints, two assessments of that move. One comes from Kiev, one comes from the Pentagon, and the Kiev Independent, in a tweet, the English language newspaper, English language portal, they're citing the country's military, who says that Russian forces have partially withdrawn from Kiev and Chernigov after the Kremlin said, coming off constructive negotiations in Istanbul, that the military would drastically reduce operations near the two major cities. So the Kiev Independent, the English language portal, is saying that their sources in the military are confirming that the Russian forces have partially withdrawn. Now, the Pentagon, U.S. leaders in the Pentagon, they're doubting this good faith move by Moscow. And they're saying, this is according to Reuters, they're saying that there has been some movement by small numbers of Russian forces away from Kiev, but this is a repositioning, not a withdrawal. So Reuters is citing sources in the Pentagon who are saying this is a repositioning, not a withdrawal. Blinken came out with a statement, and he said that we should be looking at Russia's actions on the ground, and I quote, not just what it says. That's what Blinken said. So Blinken was not happy about this development, this Ukraine proposal, which makes me believe that there are a lot of different forces in and around Zelensky that are probably pushing him in different directions. Perhaps there are forces that are puppeteering Zelensky, telling him it's useless, you've lost, we've lost, surrender, put an agreement on the table, otherwise our military is going to get annihilated. And then you may have forces like Blinken and Newland who are puppeteering Zelensky, and they're saying, don't you dare put a solid proposal on the table. You're going to fight the Russians till the last Ukrainian. And they're pushing Zelensky to continue to fight because they want to prolong this conflict. And so those are the statements we're getting. One from the Kiev Independent and their sources in the military in Ukraine, and then we're getting the Pentagon's reaction. Now, let me read you a really good breakdown, and this comes from RT. And yes, I found a way to access a little bit of RT and the Russian media channel, state media channel, but they have a good breakdown as to exactly what was presented at the negotiations in Turkey. And RT says that the proposal will be relayed to Russian President Vladimir Putin for consideration. And what happened at these talks, which Medinsky, the chief negotiator for the Russian side, says was substantive, is they have a document that was presented to them, and now they can fly back to Russia and present it to Putin and to the Security Council. Let me read you some of the points from RT, because I think this provides a lot of clarity as to what the Ukraine side is putting on the table. And then you can decide in the comments down below what you think of what the Ukraine side is asking for and what you think the Russian response will be. I'm really curious to read what you think the response from Russia will be now that they have this document in their hands. And always keep in mind, Medinsky said, there is no ceasefire. The operations will continue, and they are focused on the east and on the south, southeast, southwest of Ukraine, and they're going to continue to keep those forces in Kiev and Chernigov pinned down so that they don't get involved in what's happening in the east and the south. Real simple. They're going to stay put while the Russians deal with that over there. Stay put in Kiev. We're going to deal with that over there. And then we'll come back and we'll continue to work on the diplomatic front. So anyway, here is RT's roundup of this. And this is really good. And keep in mind, RT obviously is the Russian state media. So what I'm reading to you is from the Russian side of things. And look, I think it's a good breakdown. So anyway, here's what RT says. The Russian offensive is scaled down. An immediate practical effect of the talks will be a de-escalation of military activity in some parts of Ukraine, the Russian defense military announced. In particular, it pledged to dramatically reduce its operations near the cities of Chernigov and the capital of Kiev. Second point, NATO-like security guarantees. David Arakamia, Medinsky's opposite number in the Ukrainian delegation, said Kiev had sought a security guarantee similar to that contained in Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty. That's very key, similar to Article 5 of the NATO Treaty. He named Russia, the UK, China, the US, Turkey, France, Canada, Italy, Poland, and Israel as possible providers. Some of them have given their preliminary agreement, he said. David Arakamia, the negotiator for Ukraine. The third point, no military blocs and non-nuclear Ukraine. In the proposal, Ukraine pledged not to join any military alliance, not to host foreign military bases or foreign troops. Medinsky said even military exercises would require prior approval from guarantors. According to the proposal, Kiev also pledged not to seek to obtain weapons of mass destruction, including nuclear weapons, the official agreed. But in return, Ukraine wants Russia not to object to its joining the EU one day. All right, they want into the EU. That's going to be interesting. Ukraine into the European Union, which is disintegrating and falling apart. Okay, I don't think Russia's going to have a problem with that, given that the EU is a complete basket case, and admitting Ukraine into the EU would just further accelerate the EU's demise. But on the other side, you can make the argument that what's the difference between the EU and NATO? Once you get into the European Union, well, then isn't it one step closer to NATO? NATO is the military arm of the European Union. So there's arguments on both sides. The Russians could say, I joined the EU. The EU's falling apart anyway, and it's a corrupt and disintegrating organization. But on the other side, people may say, yeah, but once you get into the EU, then you're essentially 1 foot into NATO. Anyway, the Ukraine side says that they want into NATO, into the EU. What point are we on? The fourth point, Crimea and Donbass is unresolved. According to Medinsky, Kiev offered a 15-year moratorium on the status of Crimea, during which its fate would be negotiated and both sides would pledge not to use military force to resolve it. This is not compatible with Russia's position that Crimea is part of its territory and Kiev needs to reorganize it as such. Ukraine also sought to include parts of the Donetsk and Lugansk regions into the definition of its territory for the purpose of security guarantees. The Russian envoy said, Moscow officially recognized Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics as sovereign states in their full regional boundaries just before sending troops into Ukraine last month. The fifth point, I'm on point number 5. Yes, 2, 3, 4, 5. The fifth point, borders in question. Medinsky said Kiev did not state whether it would relinquish its territorial claim to Donetsk and Lugansk. Prior to February, Ukraine controlled a large portion of both Donetsk and Lugansk and considers the regions to be its own territory. Arakhamia, the Ukraine negotiator, Arakhamia made it clear that Kiev will assert sovereignty over the entire territory that Ukraine had when it declared independence in 1991, saying there could be no compromise on this point. No compromise on this point. New conditions for the Zelensky-Putin meeting. This is the final point. Moscow has agreed to organize a meeting between Putin and his Ukrainian counterpart, Zelensky, as part of the final phase of negotiations over the future peace treaty. The Kremlin previously said that the meeting between Zelensky and Putin should be organized at another date, but as I said in the opening of my video, the Russians have agreed to that point. They said, okay, we can throw all these meetings together if we get to the stage where we're going to sign something. So look, those are the points, the main points of what was talked about in Turkey. And I think it's a good roundup. It gives a good overview as to what's on the table right now for the Russian side to consider. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. My own personal thoughts on this is it's a negotiation. It's a negotiation. The military operation is not stopping. I think the denazification is going to be completed. The Russians aren't going to stop with the denazification or the demilitarization. The troops in Donbass are getting steamrolled. From my reports, they're just getting absolutely steamrolled. And the new assets that are going to be moving towards the east are going to further accelerate this annihilation of these forces, and that's going to strengthen the position of Russia. And I'm sure that the Ukrainian side put this proposal on the table because they know that they're getting annihilated. That's why they put this proposal on the table. I love how the Western mainstream media says, "Oh, this is a Russian retreat. This is proof that Russia's losing." No, it's not. This is actually proof that Ukraine is getting beaten in a big way, outright. They're getting beat because they're actually putting a proposal after 8+ years on the table, and the proposal is kind of meant to either buy time so they can figure something out, maybe a false flag, I don't know, but they're looking to buy time, or they're looking to actually come up with a settlement because they know their country's about to be no more. I mean, there may be some people in and around Zelensky who understand that we're losing big, and our country's about to not exist anymore if we don't come up with some sort of agreement. So in any negotiation, the one side is going to put something on the table which is, completely in favor of their side, and the other side's going to come back with a counter proposal, and then they're going to work back and forth and see if they can come to some sort of compromise. In this scenario, I imagine the Russians have all the leverage, and as the Donbass military, the Ukraine military in the Donbass is defeated and grinded down day by day, the Russians exert more and more leverage, and they're going to get everything that they want. That's my opinion. They're going to get everything that they want out of this. So those are my thoughts. The point about Crimea, I think, is a red line for the Russians. They want Ukraine to just, the entire world, to recognize Crimea as Russian. None of this 15-year negotiations and stuff like that. I think that's not going to fly with Russia. Donetsk and Lugansk, the Russians have already recognized them as independent sovereign states, so they're not going to give that up to Ukraine and say, okay, now Donetsk and Lugansk can go back to Ukraine. So I think that's a no-go as well. And the security guarantees and the guarantor countries, I cannot for the life of me see Russia agreeing to that, having the U.S. or Poland or Turkey or any country guarantee Ukraine's security in that kind of way. I think they would have to move towards a different type of formula and not have guarantor states, because how do you have the U.S. or NATO guarantee the U.S. or Poland or Turkey guarantee Ukraine's sovereignty without it just having it be, a de facto NATO country, guaranteeing Ukraine's sovereignty. Because that's what it is in essence. The U.S., Poland, Turkey, those are NATO countries. So if they're guarantee states, it's just like having NATO, once again, inside of Ukraine, guaranteeing their sovereignty. And a guarantor means that they would have the legal right to impose no-fly zones and stuff like that and intervene militarily. I don't think the Russians will go for that. I don't see them going for that at all, because it's just like saying, we won't have all of NATO in Ukraine, but we'll just have these 2 or 3 countries that are in NATO guarantee Ukraine's security. I don't think it'll fly at all. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Who knows? Who knows what the Russians are going to come back with? If they even come back with anything, we will see. Anyway, I wanted to give you guys the roundup as to what was proposed yesterday in Turkey. We have a clear picture. All's in the Russian court. They're going to look at this document and they're going to come back with their thoughts and their proposals and their ideas. And we'll see. We'll see how all of this unfolds. I think I don't know, maybe this will move quickly, but my guess is that this will take a little bit of time. This won't be quick. I actually think that Medinsky, the Russian negotiator, said that this is a first step and we've got a long way to go. So the military operation continues. Donbass is the focus. The east of Ukraine is the focus. The south of Ukraine is the focus. Mariupol is in Russian hands. Kherson is in Russian hands. Kiev remains surrounded. A lot of activity in Kharkiv, Odessa, where there's some question marks there. There's some activity taking place there, and we'll see. We'll see. Diplomacy and military operations. We've said it from day one that that's how the Russians operate. Diplomacy and the military operations move side by side, hand in hand. And one final point, and let me get moving so I can. What do you guys think of the graffiti? Of this graffiti right here? Yeah. Athens graffiti art. One final point is that the same process happened in Syria. The Russians actually scaled down their military operations in Syria 2 times. They redeployed forces. They had all kinds of ceasefires and agreements in place with the forces in Syria that were waging this war, and they tried to find a peace, and the Russians scaled back 2 times. And both of those times it failed, and both of those times when the Russians scaled back and they had to come in again and recontinue their operations, things intensified until Russia just outright annihilated the Obama-funded moderate rebels. And you all know what I mean when I say moderate rebels. Yeah, yes, guys. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. theduran.locals.com. Check out Alexander's channel and check out the Duran channel as well for more video updates. Take care.